And welcome to Retrospect My Fantasy. Today, we are continuing on our game design journey of making the world guide of Al Qadim, a comprehensive world guide of Al Qadim, and we're going to be putting that together for the purposes of creating a 5th edition supplement. If you don't know what Al Qadim is my favorite of the 2nd edition campaign settings. This is Al Qadim. Now, this book, this one in particular, is kind of old and beaten up, and I've used it a lot. I actually have 3 other versions over there, 2 of which are about as beaten up as this one, and one of which is almost in perfect condition. And this is what we're going to be translating that to. So that old kind of awesome but busted looking art is going to be moving forward into the new age of Dungeons and Dragons, because, well, the easiest way to get into it is that D&D, they continuously bring back the Forgotten Realms, which Al Qadim is a part of, but they don't bring back everything for the Forgotten Realms. Just the main campaign setting of the Sword Coast and Faerun and Waterdeep and those cities that we've known so well from such games as Baldur's Gate and Sword Coast Legends and Neverwinter. But there's a lot more to that world than that, and my favorite campaign setting happens to be a part of that, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm just doing it because I love this campaign setting, and I want to make something that I can share with the world to hopefully get them get into it as well. Now, before we get into the game, got a couple things to go over. Into our design, got a couple things to go over. Number 1, we are partnered with Humble. So if you take that link that I just put into chat, that'll take you over to the Humble homepage. At the Humble homepage, you can check out the Humble bundles, which are frequently amazing deals, where you can get a whole bunch of awesome stuff. Games, they frequently have ebooks, sometimes they have audiobooks, they frequently have a whole bunch of like software tools for either game development or websites or what have you, usually for an amazing deal. There's also the Humble store, which frequently has sales, and they're not just sales, but off-season sales. So, you know, if you're looking for, I don't know, the newest Far Cry, or not the newest, but the previous Far Cry, go check it out on Humble. It might be on sale when it's not on sale anywhere else. I mean, I just picked up the entire Jackbox set, Jackbox Party Pack set from the Humble bundle, and I want to say, if not all, most of it was half off. So that was a great deal. But by using our link, it does a couple things. 1, it gets you the stuff that you're looking for while you're there. 2, it helps support amazing charities. I mean, that happens no matter where you go with Humble, but the third thing it does is it helps support our channel and the charity that I have chosen, which is Doctors Without Borders. So, if you are interested in making any of that happen, please go there and check it out. The second thing that I've got to talk about is that we have a Discord. So if you take that link, that'll take you to our Discord page. We've got a whole bunch of voice comms. We've got a couple of just general voice chats. I've got comms for various games. I've got a whole bunch of just discussion boards as well. This is a place where you can meet with other members of the community and talk about stuff. I've got suggestion boards. I've got Q&A section. So go check it out. Throw some Q's in there so I can give you some A's. And the last thing is that we have recently launched a Patreon. Now, a lot of people are looking for Patreon to kind of supplement their income, and I'm no different in that regard, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it so that, because I put a lot of work and effort into what we do here, and I want to make it as good as possible. but I need a little bit of help with that. Um, we need, just off the top of my head, I'm going to need a new computer soon. We want to get better video. I mean, our video's fine, but we can do better. And we need better audio. Right now, I have it set up so that this microphone is putting out modular sound. But with just a couple $100, we could upgrade and we could have better microphones. Actually, maybe not without getting too expensive. But I could have a soundboard so that I could produce just in general higher quality audio signal. There's a lot that can go into improving this stream, and I am asking for help to make that happen. I've got a couple of reward tiers that actually have rewards, but the highest is our $20 tier, which upon the completion of any one of the products that we're making in our game design section, if you are subscribed at the $20 level when it's completed, I will print a copy of whatever it is. If it's a board game, I'll make a physical copy. If it's something like this, like the World Guide or the Player's Handbook for Al Qadim or whatever, I will print up a copy, make sure it looks nice and is well bound, and send it to you. But that is everything. Go check it out. Just go check it out. Even if you don't have the means to give anything at this moment, whether it's bits or at the Patreon or subscriptions or whatever, just go check it out. Let me know what you think, because I'm sure there's improvements that can be made to the Patreon. I'm sure there's more improvements that can be made to the channel. That's largely why I have the Discord, is so that you guys can have a direct line to me. Of course, you can also find me on Twitter. I've got a YouTube page, The Archive. There's a whole bunch of links if you go just below the stream that will get you to places where you can check stuff out. So please, if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, let me know. Just let me know. I will do my best to be as accommodating as possible. Now, with all that stuff out of the way, let's get into our game design. Oh, last thing. The music that we are listening to, and the reason why I have Winamp up, is so that you can see the artist and the name of the song. That way we are giving proper credit to the people over at Music Free Archive, which is where I got all the music for our show. So let's get back into this. So I did some more, and then I say that and I immediately click off it. So we'll move you. No, not under me. We'll move you right there so you're still on screen, but I won't cover you up with half of this. So last time, we were way up here. And over the past couple of days, I was able to get some of these sections to where they need to be, and we just got to Faith this morning, which is going to be a lot of stuff about the gods, and largely for this particular book that we're writing, the World Guide to Al Qadim, which is honestly mostly just copy and pasted from the various source books that they created in the past. I'm just compiling it all, and I'm going to edit it and put it into a setup that hopefully looks a little bit better, is a little bit more modernized, something that maybe just fits with our modern sensibilities a little bit better. But that is kind of the idea for this first book. It's intended as more of a GM's book, but anyone can pick it up and use it. It is going to have a lot of information. Once we get to the player's guide to Al Qadim, That's going to have a lot more, obviously, like rules. It's going to have kind of a truncated version of all of this information that's here, just so that if anybody needs this information, they can still, for their character, they don't have to have a whole another book at the table. All they need is this one, or that one will be that all that they need. But I want to do this one first because any sort of edits that we do to this will be prevalent in the Player's Guide to Al Qadim. Also, as I'm more of a DM and a storyteller, or DM stands for Dungeon Master. Many games don't call it a Dungeon Master because they're not Dungeons & Dragons, so it's often called a GM, Game Master. But as someone who has more and more frequently been a GM or DM, this is a little bit more near and dear to my heart. All the lore and whatnot about, especially like the stuff about the gods, and it is interesting things. So the main thing about the gods in Al Qadim is that, unlike the gods in other campaign settings, the gods of Al Qadim don't have avatars on the world. They just walk it themselves, which is way different. If you're used to like Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance, the gods in those campaign settings don't, generally speaking, make their exact presences known to people, not like directly. You're not going to like walk up and talk to a god. You might talk to their avatar, they might pull you into their realm, and you can talk to them there, but, you know, Paladine doesn't typically just walk around Krynn waiting for someone to come up to him and, you know, bullshit. I mean, the gods in Al Qadim don't either, but you could be just talking with what seems to be some old gruff guy at a cafe, and as it turns out, it's one of the main gods. Oh god, what's his name? Hakama? Hajima. Yeah, you could just be talking to Hajima. No big deal. That is just kind of how it rolls. They can travel to the other planes, but since they don't have an alignment, they don't really like get anything from it, and they don't really live in the greater cosmology planes. So for instance, if you don't know about the cosmology of D&D, it's complex and pretty convoluted, but each of the 12 alignments has its own realm. So there's a realm for lawful neutral, there's a realm for lawful good, there's a realm for lawful evil, all the way around the lawful chaotic and good evil axis. And the gods who embody those alignments live on that plane. Now, they also have a direct line to whatever world in the Primaterium plane, which is where Krynn and Farron and God, what are the other worlds of Greyhawk? That's where all those are. They're in the Primaterium plane. They have a direct line from their home on Mount Olympus or the Nine Hells or whatever directly to the world that they come from. Or the world where they're worshipped. But they actually live somewhere else. It makes things very interesting, especially when you think of, like, there is... Actually, probably the most interesting thing about the 12 alignments is the evil section, which is the Abyss, the Nine Hells, and... Ooh, I don't remember what neutral evil is. But that access is, like, awesome. Because chaotic evil is demons. They're, you know, horrible, slabbering, vicious things that try to destroy everything in their path because they don't have any... They're destruction without purpose. That's what chaotic evil on the alignment scale tends to be. Although it can be many... So, oh god. So talking about this sort of thing gets you into the alignment system. And the alignment system in D&D is simultaneously the greatest thing that they've ever done and the worst. The reason it's the greatest is because it is a tool by which a player can look at their character and say, my character is lawful good. That means my character generally obeys the law and generally is a good person. What this doesn't mean is that my character is a soulless killjoy who can't have any fun, because fun is either evil or against the law. And that is something where a lot of players have problems. Frequently paladins are lawful good. But they don't have to be, not necessarily. But when they are lawful good, there's a term that gets brought up to kind of disparage lawful good paladins. And that is lawful asshole. Now, a paladin doesn't have to be lawful asshole, even if he is lawful good, but that is frequently the way he is played. You know, he won't stand for the thief to be stealing. Stealing is against the law, and he will slay any man who breaks the law. That's a lawful asshole character. And although that paladin can be fun as a villain for your campaign, in fact, I personally think that lawful asshole paladins make great villains. They don't necessarily make for great, compelling character moments, especially in a party, because usually what this breaks down to is you'll have a paladin who is lawful asshole, and then you'll have a thief or someone who wants to play an assassin, an assassin has to be evil in the world of D&D. Because they commit wanton murder. So it just causes... The alignment argument is a problem. How a player should be playing a lawful good paladin is someone who upholds the rights of their good god, their good aligned god, and does their best to uphold the law. That does not mean that they slay people in the streets for stealing. What this means is that, you know, they might scold the thief, but they're not dumb. If they, for instance, if the thief stole from a merchant family who was on hard times, the paladin's probably going to punch him in the face, take the bag of money, and go give it back to the family. And this is not a lawful asshole. However, if you need to... if there is some rich merchant who is... if your thief is more of a Robin Hood character, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, or the needy, the paladin's probably going to look the other way. Because even though that person committed a crime, they did it for a just and good reason. And sometimes you have to get your hands a little dirty to do the good and ultimately lawful thing. Also, there's a whole, like, that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you really want to get into alignment arguments, people will argue alignment until they're blue in the face. The worst is usually chaotic neutral. Because what this means is that this person does not obey the law because they're chaotic. In fact, they actively try to oppose the law whenever possible. And then they have no moral compass. So they have no moral compass, and they actively try to oppose the law. This person is just an anarchist. Okay, so now we're getting into the part where we can start doing some editing. So, Order of Priests. What this tells you is that this god has 20 pragmatists, 65 etheists, and 15 moralists who are sanctioned priests within his order. And they all have +1 bonus to their constitution up to a maximum of 18. If they're a pantheon order. And priests who worship him may fight with short swords. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take this section out, and we're going to save that for our cleric section, where we're going to give each clerics who worship certain gods different bonuses, and then we'll worry about the spells later. So we can take this whole section out of here. And then we're also going to rewrite some of this stuff up. Because his ideal is bravery. With bravery wins out over opposition. That is, when someone is saying a prayer to Hajama. Hajama. I need to learn how to pronounce these words correctly. Even though they're made-up words. They're looking for strength and to overcome adversity, and that's what they would pray to Hajma the Courageous for. God, so the reason I have such a hard time with this is because I have never studied Arabic language. The only language outside of my native English that I've ever taken any time to learn was Japanese. And in Japanese, that'd be Hajma. But I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Hajama. Principles. Trust your feelings and follow your heart. Always dare to try. Cowards fail because of their great deeds are unattempted. Bravery takes many forms, the easiest of which is in battle. Living through a defeat strengthens the spirit. So these are all things that kind of make up what a worshiper of Hajama believes. The faith of the brave of Hajama is popular in rural areas, particularly those which border deserts, mountains, or other potentially hostile regions. If a man is said to have Hajama in his heart and fate at his back, then he is both courageous and fortunate. The faiths of Hajama and Najm are on friendly terms, and priests of one faith will attend each other's mosques. In the pantheon, Hajama is portrayed as the son of Kor, with Najm as his twin brother. The best way to think of this is, there is a subset of worshippers in Al-Qadim called the Pantheist League. And the Pantheist League are assholes. They believe that their version of the Gospels is 100% true, and if anyone believes anything else, they must die. Or not must die, but are wrong and should probably be killed for their own good. They're messed up. All right. So, Hakya of the sea breeze, cresting wave. These are where her major worship centers are found. She's not part of the Pantheist order. And her priests just gain an additional +1 to wisdom. That's not great. Honesty and truth. Truth will always win out. Our first bit of actual editing. Haku, the master of the desert wind. I'm pretty sure this is the same one that I delete from this playlist every time. His ordered priests have no special features, but they may use scimitars. A man and a woman must be free to be considered alive. I like that one. Hara the Gemmed. Representing wealth, this goddess is sometimes called Huara, the gem-studded. She is technically a common deity, because her worship is confined to the Pantheist League. The Pantheist League is most likely to do, or at least, if I remember correctly, I'd have to reread some things, but if I remember correctly, they're most likely the ones to send out, like, assassins. They're kind of a weird group. but they definitely make a very, very easy villain. In one of my games, I had the player characters being stalked by a couple of Holy Slayers from the Pantheist League. And they dispatched them, but actually pretty easily, because one of the characters used a spell that in Pathfinder that paralyzes a person and has them laughing until they can roll a saving throw successfully. And this guy did not roll a saving throw successfully, so he just stood there laughing while they dealt with his buddy. And then, because if you hit them, it breaks them out of it. And then they all just ganged up on him at once, and it was just over. Wow. No special abilities there either. That sucks. Jacen of the Flood. Also, these guys, like these Holy Slayers that I'd sent after my player characters, I wholly anticipated on killing at least one player. But it didn't happen. They disabled one of them with a single spell, and I couldn't roll for crap to get him out. So he was just dead. That was it. God, all these gods that don't give anything to their priests, I mean, like nothing special, we're gonna have to come up with something. Kor the Venerable, also known as Old Kor. He's considered like the father figure of the gods, or like Woden, or Yahweh. Interesting. So we can get rid of that. Fortunately, all this stuff is still available, even though I'm deleting it from our world guide. It's all still available in all these books. I mean, heck, where are we? We are... Wait, are we in this book yet? Are we still in the last book? Oh no, we're way down here. We're right there. So we're way down into this book. It's good. The farther along we can get, the quicker we can move on to the stuff that's more interesting. Najum. Dashing, hot-tempered, fervent, and very much alive. Single arrow pointing upward. They may use short bows. See, there's something. Keep in mind that back in the days of 2nd edition, the clerics had a very limited set of stuff they could do. I want to say they could use maces and they could wear armor. Like, that's what made clerics, like, really awesome. And then these specialty clerics get, on top of all that stuff, they also get a few additional bonuses. Specialty priests are nasty, nasty fellas. If you're playing in a 2nd edition campaign, try to be, in any setting, try to be a specialty priest. You get bonuses. You get bonuses up the wazoo, actually. Specialty priests might be the most powerful class in 2nd edition D&D. And they don't have the crazy requirements of like bards or paladins or druids. Actually, druids in 2nd edition D&D were also ridiculously powerful, but they had one massive downside. Every time, even if you got more experience, enough experience to level up, if you actually wanted to level up, in 2nd edition, you had to go into the wilderness and find the druid whose level was the one that you were trying to attain. So if you were going from level 5 to level 6, you had to go and find a level 6 druid and beat him in combat. Not just beat him, kill him in combat, so that you are now the level 6 druid of this area. Because that's the only way it would work. There was only one druid of a level at any given moment. It was BS. But people liked it for some reason. Xanda learned. Okay. Bam. Drop that. Okay. Oh wait, are these all his principles right here? Holy crap, he's got a lot of principles. I mean, he's the god of wisdom and learning, so I guess they might. And here, so after we do all this, we go through it, we're editing. Once we get to the part where we are putting this into kind of a book form, we're going to be re-editing to make sure that it fits pagination so that we can put art in and tables and things of that nature so that it all like lines up and fits well together. For now, we're mostly just editing text. Which is kind of boring, not really all exciting. Actually, none of the stuff that we're doing is ever going to be terribly exciting. Unless you're really into game design theory and whatnot. Or into my RPG stories. But, yeah. Oh, so nice. Let's go back a few threads. That bottom section of alignment in the Greater Pantheon of between the Abyss and the Nine Hells is that the evil, the neutral evil section, the middle one, that is essentially the battleground for what is known as the Blood War. because the demons, they're both sides are evil. The demons and the devils are both evil, but they have differences. The biggest being that the devils believe in a sense of order. Everything is in it, everything has its place and is in its place and belongs there. That's where you get in D&D, you don't make deals with demons. Demons don't care about deals. Demons are just as likely to reward you for something that didn't help them, at least not in any way that is easily determinable, as they are to you make a deal with them, you do the thing, and then they renege on their deal and try and murder you or something. Whereas devils, you'll have a contract, you'll sign it, you'll get what is specified. And so will they. So read it well. And because of this ideological difference of order versus chaos, they couldn't get along. And so they had an entire war that lasted millennia and spilled into other realms where demons and devils, because they can't get along, because of this whole order versus chaos thing, they really, really tried to mess each other up pretty badly. We're almost done with the gods. What's after the gods? The city. So I'm actually probably going to move the cities section. Oh. Nope. You need to be up. Probably actually going to move the cities section closer towards the top where we have the geography and whatnot. And the breakdown of like the Al-Badi and the Al-Hadar. That way it gives a little bit of context. Yeah, you can go away. Well, not so much context, but like shows. So like when I say like I'll probably do the main regions of the world and then all the cities in those regions, and then all the Al-Badi tribes in those regions. And then we can... Maybe I'll do a day in the life ahead before that. I don't know. We'll work on placement and where everything goes in its time. For now, let's finish up the gods. away. Hierarchy, free priests. And then Temple of the Thousand Gods. There's one more after that. Although, if you notice my scroll bar here, we really haven't made that much progress overall. We've made quite a bit of progress. It helps that what we're doing is kind of simple and repetitive, at least for now. Once we actually get into a lot more of the editing process of what we want to include, what we might want to rewrite, that's going to be a bit more difficult. As we like paginate, which is placing things where we want them to be, what order we want to do things, what looks good, what doesn't. There's a lot more ahead of us than just what we've done thus far. Because, I mean, if I were to print this, like, just as it is, it would be a mess. It would also not look very good. Nope, nope. Also called Master of the Battlefields, this common god represents duty and strife. He's worshipped far north of Zakura, in regions that border upon the barbarian lands. So this is one of the few times where we get to talk about actual history here on this portion, and that is that thanks to the influences and trade with what we consider the Far East, China, India, whatnot, what we consider the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Persia, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Turkey, Greece, or not Greece, but that section of the Middle East was, until roughly the Renaissance, way more advanced than pretty much any other culture, technologically speaking, on Earth. And because of that, they considered pretty much everyone else barbarians. Who are more focused on taking land and causing pain, and I mean, they would gladly trade with them, but it was a tumultuous time in human history. And once the Crusades started, it was the things that humans have done to other humans in the name of religion is pretty frightening, TBH. Actually, I'm not even going to go so far as to say religion. In the name of beliefs. Makes me very curious what some scholars think about many of the things that have occurred in our history. and honestly are still occurring today. You would think that after 2,000-3,000 years, we would start to learn some shit, but apparently not. I personally, maybe I shouldn't talk about that. Never mind. But the things, it is no like controversy to say that human society over the years has done terrible things to each other, and that you'd think we would learn, but apparently we haven't. Those same sorts of atrocities are being committed every day all over the world. Which is one of the reasons. So frequently in Dungeons & Dragons campaigns, there's a couple of things that kind of get tagged along with D&D, and a large portion of it comes from Tolkien influence. The first one is that dwarves and elves are not friendly. That is a thing that has been written into many, many campaign settings, including the Greater Forgotten Realms, but not in Alquadine. Race does not matter in Alquadine. All that matters effectively is can the two beings, if they're gonna be in a relationship, produce viable offspring? That's concern number one. Concern number two, from a society aspect, is can it exist in the city, if it, or camp or whatever, without causing destruction on accident, let alone on purpose? If the answer to both of those is yes, it can exist without causing mass damage or causing panic, great. If they, from a relationship standpoint, if they can produce a viable offspring, wonderful. No problems. With the exception of the Pantheist League in Alquadine, there is no discrimination based on deity either. They might look at you weird when you start talking about like your beliefs and be like, what? No, I mean, I guess that's your god, but that's kind of weird, man. But they're not gonna look down on you just because you have a weird god. They're gonna look at you weird. They're gonna look at you weird because your god's beliefs are like god of battle. Why would you want to have a god whose sole purpose is to commit war? Like, bravery. There's many types of bravery, but why have a god of war? That's just weird. Like, that's the kind of like things you can expect from the citizens of Zakra when it comes to your religious beliefs. The really weird one is you're like, nah man, I don't believe in the gods. I'm gonna be like, whoa, dude, you know that guy over there around the corner that's healing sick people? You know he's doing that because the gods are giving him the power to do that, right? Like, literally. I mean, we might be able to actually just go find a god. You wanna come? We'll stop by the cafe. Maybe go to an inn. I mean, there's no guarantees, and the god might be disguised, but we might be able to just find one. And if you are really incredulous and be like, no, gods don't exist. Gods are fake. They're gonna be like, look, dude, you need to leave before someone gets really upset and puts a dagger in your gut. Like, not being religious is far worse than having a weird god that no one understands. Which makes things really convenient for wanting to do, like, if you want to run a Cthulhu campaign, oh, so easy in Al Qadim. You just have some weird, crazy creature, and everyone's like, this dude's yelling is driving me crazy. But his god is weird as all hell. But can someone just shut him up? Like, that's what you do to, like, the raving loon who's trying to summon Azathoth. And then eventually the police will come around and be like, listen, man, you're causing lots of disturbances. Why don't you come with us? And they're probably just going to put him in, like, in a cell in a prison. So he can bash his head against a wall until he dies. In the service of Azathoth. Alright, do we even want to... Some faiths are brought to Zakhara through traders and explorers from far-off lands. To Zakharans, such foreign gods, the Ajami gods, are invariably vain and selfish. Their temples are restrictive, for each demands worship in a shrine erected solely in his or her name. Nearly all grant powers through their symbols, and allow themselves to be flattered with graphic portrayals at every turn. Often they are carried like a burden by the travelers who worship them. While these gods are many, too many, as say Zakharans, only a few deserve mention here. I don't think we're going to include this section. I like this little bit right here. Especially the part that talks about, like, in other cultures, gods seem like a burden. I really like that bit. But I don't think I like the rest of... Nope. Yeah, I don't think I like the rest of that. So we're going to get rid of it. Alright, now we're talking about the cities. There is a lot of cities. Fortunately, these are already broken down by sections, like the City of the Heart, Cities of the North, Cities of the Pearl, Cities of the Pantheon, Cities of the Ancient. And then we'll probably do some of these tales, but not all of them. We're definitely not going to do the calendar, because it's our 12-month calendar, just with the different names. And we'll probably be taking some of these... welcome and mentioning it. We'll probably be taking some of these illustrations and sprinkling them throughout, just to kind of spice things up a little bit. Okay. Especially, I think I'm going to lead each of these sections, like City of the Heart and whatnot, with like a large graphic that is that section of the world. or of the continent, just to make things like very clear. This is where you are in talking about these sections. I can't think of any other way of better illustrating that point. I mean, there probably is, like, at the not just like have that section and then like Halwa, just have it like zoomed in even closer to where that is. I guess I could do that, but that seems a little much. Half human, female, aristocrat 12. I think I'm reading that correctly. I could go back up somewhere in this book and find out, but... So, aristocrats, as a class, are only an NPC class. And essentially what that means is they have a lot of skill points and training in diplomacy. And are well educated. That's generally what that means. Oh, I can probably give the ruler their own section. Court will have its own section. I also need to go back up and redo some of the sections, but we're past that. I will fix those problems on my own time, not on stream time. Oh, okay. I was reading this little section here. The Chief Vizier is served by a Dao of maximum hit points, and for some reason my brain was not putting that the Dao happens to have the maximum number of hit points for a Dao. No. My brain went, the Dao of maximum hit points? How meta are they getting in this? Jeez. That's the kind of stuff that we'll be editing for. Features of the city. It's a bustling little city of 60,000. Actually, at the time, that's huge. I'm so glad I'm not doing this in Photoshop. This portion, at least. Once we drop it in and start moving things around and adding graphics and whatnot, we will definitely be having many more problems with Photoshop. Photoshop. I love you, but you can be a mess of a program sometimes. Major mosques. Essentially, this section of like what all these cities have is kind of a breakdown for DMs who are quickly like, oh, we're in we're in Hawaha. Okay. And then they can flip to that page and be like, okay, what is in Hawaha? What are the legends here? Because they went to a cafe and asked about rumors. Where does that little appendix fit in? Oh. Is that this right here? Yes, it is. So it's essentially telling us how to read this section. Whoa, too far. Boop. Go away. And you go away too. Let's see here. Rod places himself above the law. Only his marriage to the Caliph's eldest daughter will establish him fully as the city's ruler. So right there's an adventure hook. He is a terrible ruler. He is ruining the city. The player characters are part of a resistance. They're given something to take to the capital. And they gotta get there. While avoiding his men, and like, that's a huge adventure hook right there. They have an antagonist built in with Zarad, and they gotta, maybe there's negotiations for a marriage or something, but they gotta get this information into the Grand Caliph's hands. That way he'll call off the wedding, making sure that this guy pretty much does not have immunity. I don't know where I would take that from there, but that is a perfect adventure hook. Ready to go. But that's kind of what those rumors and secrets are made for. In my first campaign, I had a good section of the game take place in Hial. And Hial is one of those cities where the current ruler is only a little bit corrupt. Only a little. Not terribly. Only a little bit corrupt. But her kids are really corrupt. And they pretty much run like the guards and the secret police and the militia, and they're all kind of jockeying for place to take over when their mom dies. And in one of my and in one particular section, I had the characters gone for a little while, and when they came back, the streets were running red with blood. All three factions essentially got into this, in one area, the streets were running red with blood. Got into this huge fight, and like a dozen guards were killed, you know, like a few militiamen, a few secret police. Like, it was horrible. And the characters, and like a few civilians got caught in it, and the characters were just appalled. But they were on a mission that was a higher calling. They could have stayed, like, that was essentially like me throwing them like a, hey, I know you've got this big mission that you're trying to do, but hey, here's this thing. Do you wanna take care of it? And they didn't. They passed it up. They got into town, they took care of whatever business they had to do in town, and then they just left and forgot all about it. I remember they stayed at like a fancy inn, and they were like, they had some questions, like they were going to take care of some stuff, but about like they were going to go to the palace and essentially pound on the door and say, what the hell? Your kids are throwing a temper tantrum in the city with armed people. But then they didn't. They had an opulent dinner at someone else's expense. Got paid some money, and then got on a boat and left, completely forgetting about what they were planning on doing. That's all right. Actually, that's not even the worst thing that did. So, I had the characters do. For those that don't know, genies don't grant wishes. What genies can do is, because they're powerful, extraplanar beings, is they can grant boons to those that. Like, they can grant their favor to someone who does a task for them. Well, I had a Jinn, a Marid, and an Ifrit. So a water, an air, and a fire genie. Ask them to help rescue a Dao. That's what the player's characters had to do. They rescue a Earth genie. So they rescued him. Everything was great. They went back, and they all got to ask for one favor. And the characters all asked for stuff that made sense. One of the characters was playing an alchemist, so he asked for an ever-burning coal from the Ifrit. So the Ifrit left, came back with a coal that would never go out completely, but the owner of the coal could effectively use magic words to make it hotter and hotter or cooler and cooler until it was barely an ember lit on the surface or a raging inferno that as hot as one coal could possibly be, and it would never burn up. Like, it would never go away. Another character asked the Dao to make his skin as hard as stone. And while the Dao could not make it truly as hard as stone, because that would kill him, he did make it harder. Like, leathery, and definitely was very, like, rough and almost rocky in appearance. God, this section on the court for her is freaking huge. Another character asked to be able to control the wind, to which, unfortunately, the Jinn had to tell him, I can't give you control of the wind, but here's what I can do. You're a sailor, right? Yeah, I'm a sailor. Great. So, I'm going to give you this bottle, and in this bottle, you will have the power of the wind. It will only work for you 12 times, but Whatever direction you point the bottle, the wind will push you. Or, the wind will come gusting out of the bottle towards the opening. I want to say another character just asked for like a +1 weapon, and they got it. That was, yeah, fine, whatever. And what did the 5th character ask for? Oh, I want to say that character was like really humble and didn't ask for anything. So, they all got out of the cave, and I stopped them right then. I was like, okay, guys, we're breaking character for a second. Why the hell didn't any of you wish for a flying carpet? We're in an Arabian setting. You could have asked these guys for anything, and none of you asked for a flying carpet? None of you wanted to be these guys. And they all just kind of looked at me, dumbfounded. Like, oh my god, how could we screw up so badly? Oh, gotta bring Winamp back up. I later ran that same small adventure for a couple of friends who were in from out of town, and they immediately asked for... Actually, no, they didn't either, but one of the characters from the previous version of that campaign was in that one. Was in the smaller one. And he was like, I'm only doing this because Matt pointed it out last time in our game. I want a flying carpet. I was like, sold, sir. You have a flying carpet. Good job. Thank you, someone, for playing to my expectations. God. Actually, I didn't just give them that. I also gave them camels made of stone that had fine saddles, so that, you know, they weren't going to get saddle sore or anything like that. And a couple of other things in the saddlebags. And with the... And the camels would take them anywhere in the world they would want to go by land once, and then they would return to which they came. So they would crumble back into dust. My thought was, oh, okay, so here's what's going to happen. They're going to use these camels to go on the next leg of their adventure to cross the desert without stopping, without worry, and then when they get to their location, the camels will crumble into dust. Makes traveling a breeze. No. They immediately hopped on those bad boys and went to the nearest town, where they then crumbled to dust. And then they effectively blackmailed someone into giving them use of a ship, which I had nothing planned for anything involving the sea. In fact, my adventure literally had zero anything planned for ocean going. And I immediately was like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Okay. Yeah, you guys have it over on him. He is totally willing to comply with your demand, kind of, because you're making him. At which point, I didn't screw them. I was thinking about just completely screwing them to get them back on the track that I wanted to, but I didn't. Instead, what I did was I got them to very close to where they were trying to get to before I screwed them. I had them be part of a convoy of ships that was traveling to the Asian adventures, Kuratao, and was going to stop off at the port that they were trying to get to on the other side of the continent. But instead what I had happen is they, for a long portion of this trip, like 2 or 3 days, they could see this black something underneath the ship ahead of them. And then when we were pretty close to where they wanted to go, I had a Kraken attack the ship that was ahead of them. And they tried to help, and they got kind of sucked in to a situation that they really didn't want to be a part of, which was a fight with a Kraken while you're on a boat in the ocean. But all the ships pretty much got destroyed, and they had to swim to shore. They lost a bunch of generic BS stuff. They didn't lose anything like important or the gifts from the djinn or anything like that. I want to say, like, the alchemist character was like, yeah, you know, you lost a few glass vials and the rest of them are dirty as all get out, so you're going to be spending like the next like month cleaning your gear. One of the characters was a Shair, and I had him lose just like a whole bunch of like bribery material for genies, but nothing like game breaking. Like, I didn't make the barbarian lose their +1 weapon. That would have just been mean on my part. But no, I definitely tried to kill... I shouldn't say that. I didn't hold any punches. I thought about, okay, what is something that could reasonably happen at this point, given everything that's going on, which was this big event that was kind of like shaking up the world and causing lots of problems everywhere. They were one of the times they were tracking near the edge of a jungle, where it kind of like slowly bled out into a plains. They were tracking alongside a river. That way they had fresh water, a running river. And they're like, okay, we need to rest. We're all kind of banged up. So they decided to go and get some food. They were going to make camp for the night. One of the characters is poking around looking for like small berry bushes along the riverside. When he gets attacked by an alligator. I want to say he stops for a second and is kind of just like bent over. And the alligator just lunges on him. And it was bad news. Like, this character went from almost full hit points at like level 4 or so, so pretty good. Pretty high number of hit points, down to almost dead. And I was like, alright. So the other characters had like 2 rounds to get there. Um, and what I had the character that was getting attacked by the alligator do is like, all right, man. So, if you want to survive this, you need to roll one hell of a strength check. And this is a guy whose dice kill players. That's all they do. His dice kill characters. He rolls and saves correctly. He's able to open up the jaws just enough to like get his leg out. It's bleeding horribly. I make him do like he uses his action to like crawl away. The other characters show up and like 2 rounds later while he's like trying to escape this, like dodge out of the way and escape away from this alligator with only one usable leg. God, it was a mess, but he got away. And it was very lucky for him. Another time, there's a section of the world where it kind of starts bleeding into what we would call like pseudo-European territory from the Middle East. And once we get to the map, I'll start showing you these things. But I had a sphinx in a hall there. And outside the hall was a plaque written in like 30 different languages that said something to the effect of your weapons will do you no good, or something like that. And there was just piles of mostly rusted out weapons, except there was a few things, magical things, that were not, because being a magical weapon helps prevent things like natural decay over time. They go inside this place, and they go inside the hall, and the first thing that they see is about 6 like small like chambers just overflowing with gold and whatnot, and then 2 statues at the very end of this hall. Now, some of you are immediately thinking what happened. Someone reaches down and takes some gold. The statues come to life and start attacking the characters, who currently have no weapons. Now, some of them are spellcasters, and some of them are just tough guys, and they were able to defeat the statues. I didn't make them like way overpowered or anything, but I made them difficult to fight. They then get into the chamber with the Sphinx, and what the Sphinx asks riddles, because of course it does. It's a Sphinx. And I had, though the way it worked was, instead of I ask you a riddle, if you get it wrong, I eat you. I had the Sphinx be effectively like an oracle. Hey, Kassan, I am enjoying myself quite a bit, actually. How are you doing? But the way the Sphinx worked in my campaign, that Sphinx, was when you come to her, for each person in your party, you will get asked a question. For every question that is answered correctly, oh, glad to hear it, you will get, for every riddle that is answered correctly, you will get 1 question, and she will tell you everything she knows about about that particular question, to the extent, she will answer to the extent of her knowledge. If everyone gets their riddles wrong, then she eats you. And so I had a number of riddles prepared, and I start asking them, and the characters, the players are sitting there just kind of thinking, and then someone will answer. We get down to the last 2. 2 characters haven't answered yet, and I ask a question, and both of the last 2 players are just kind of sitting there for like 30 seconds, and then bam, one of them answers. And the other one's like, damn it, I just had it. Like, there's this big freak out at the table. And I was like, all right, you go stand aside. And I asked the last question, which is, to this day, probably one of my favorite riddles, which is, if you throw a red stone into blue water, what happens? He was having a hard time with that riddle. So I was like, okay, all right, you know what? I want to give him a good chance. The pressure's on, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our dinner break. We're going to take our dinner break. Keep thinking about this. When we come back from dinner break, then we'll see how you answer. And the whole point was like, no one else can weigh in on this. He has to figure this out for himself, or not get an answer because everybody else answered theirs correctly. So we go, you know, a couple of us go get fast food or, you know, reheat something or whatever. And we come back, we restart, and I just look at him. All right, so what's your answer? What happens when you throw a red stone into blue water? And he's sitting there, and he's sitting there, and he's sitting there, and he just looks at me and goes, I don't know. I don't know. And I just shake my head. It gets wet. And he looks at me just dumbfounded. Like, I could not have answered that riddle more plainly and easily, and like with just such a common sense answer. Like, some of the other riddles did not have common sense answers. They were kind of like brain teasers. But this one was just a straight answer. And for whatever reason, it threw him for a loop so hard that it was just a straightforward answer. And he was looked so disappointed in himself. I've actually never seen this player, or this person, look more disappointed in something that they've done than right there. And then they asked their questions and got their answers. I don't even remember what the hell questions they were asking. I remember a couple of the questions that they were asking. Like, I remember thinking to myself, why are they asking this dumb question? Alright, I mean, then I just had to sit there and think, like, okay, I hadn't prepared for this dumbass question. What's the Sphinx gonna say? And then I would come up with an answer. But it was, the only other time I felt like really awesome as a dungeon master was, I like to do cutscenes, for lack of a better term, in my D&D campaigns. And I had one where in another campaign, the characters had trudged through this long-ass jungle. It was a pain in the ass just to get to what is kind of like a I mean, it's a pyramid, but it's like, you know those pulp images where it will be like adventurers slogging through an Asian jungle to get to the Forbidden Pyramid, like kind of like Indiana Jones style. Yeah, there's one of those in this campaign, in this setting. So I had the characters get there, and I changed the entire pyramid. I want to say there's a big, like, actual adventure, published adventure that goes along with it. But I changed it for my own campaign because I didn't need that. I just needed it to be a place of importance where the villain could do a thing. the villain of the story had kidnapped a body that was prepared to be an avatar for a god of a civilization that shouldn't exist in Al-Qadim. The Drow. And he had kidnapped it, and he was going to sacrifice it to a devil to gain power. He had summoned the devil. He was getting ready to perform the sacrifice. The characters intervened. The player characters intervened, stopped the sacrifice, killed the evil bad guy, and now what do I do? Well, the characters are sitting there, and I look, and there's this devil summoned there, and what I have them notice is that time inside, like in their immediate vicinity, has been passing normally, but they start looking around and they realize that time has been speeding up in the outside world, and they start like trying to figure out like, oh god, what's going on, because they're on a time sensitive mission. And they keep deliberating, and they can't figure out what they're gonna do, and then the demon, or sorry, the devil clears his throat and is like, I'm not going to stop this until you make a deal. The current deal on the table is power for this being's life. Meanwhile, time is still speeding up, and they're well past their deadline at that point by the time the demon actually like speaks up. And they start trying to figure out like, oh god, how can we get back in time? Like what's gonna happen? And it's not just that time is going by faster in the outside world, it's also speeding up. So going by faster and faster. And so one of them who is playing a lawful evil character walks up to this avatar child's body and just stabs it in the chest. And everyone else is like, oh god! He's like, hey, I had to do it. And I can't remember what he gets, but he does get a fair amount of power for that. In the form of a ritual book. And he doesn't actually negotiate, if I remember correctly, he actually doesn't negotiate a deal with the devil. He just does it, and the sacrifice being made, the devil makes whatever deal he wants. So that was fun. And did not turn out well for him. That character died very horribly and became an undead in the service of a lich. So, you know, good times. God, there is a lot here for Haziz. Although it's the capital, so I would imagine there would be just ridiculous amounts of stuff on it. It's also one of the few cities that gets a full map. With a key and everything. That's actually something I wish they would do more. And maybe they do. I've not purchased an adventure, a newer adventure, ever. The only... Actually, aside from core books... Yeah, aside from core books from the past... Well, not 4th edition, but I've got 2nd edition, 3.5, Pathfinder, now 5th edition. So that's four versions of the rules. All aside from Al-Qadim, which I probably spent more money on than I should have. I'm not going to tell you how much. It's just I probably spent more money than I should have. It was... that's the only sets where I have adventures. And the only reason I even got all the adventures as opposed to just getting all the core rulebooks for Al-Qadim is because there's going to be stuff in those that I want. It's going to have monster rules. It's going to have location information. It's going to have... you name it. And that's probably going to have something that is very useful. Also, I really like this campaign setting so much that I wanted to be... like, I wanted to make it my own. And not in so far... well, I mean, I did make it my own in that I wrote adventures in it. But I wanted to make it mine insofar as I own it all. If someone in my playgroup wants to play something in Al-Qadim, they come to me. It's my campaign setting. Major products. I should probably have been highlighting some of these things. Like that. Probably should have been doing stuff like that this whole time. Oh well. More editing for me later as I have to do that. I'll just make sure to remember to do it going forward. I hate it when this happens. If you've done too many edits in WordPad, eventually what happens is it... and I don't even know why it does this. One thing. There we are. But it stops really accepting your edits. At the face value. Magical Legion of up to a unit of 75 wizards of varying level. That is holy cow. I mean, it's the capital. It's got to be well defended from horrible, monstrous incursions and everything else. I also had a dinner scene in one campaign that went pretty well. So my players really like it when I'm able to describe foods, like what they're eating, like what the courses are. And I owe 100,000% of my ability to describe meals to Brian Jacques and the Redwall series. If you've never read a Redwall book, that is pretty much the best descriptors for food in the world. In fact, I'm not sure how he does it. Oh, wait. Major, mosques, and priests. But yeah, every description that I gave was something that you would find in a Redwall book. And it would be stuff like roasted fish. You can smell the garlic and the onion before you even smell the rest of the fish. It's glazed in a fruit, it has a fruit glaze that you don't catch immediately because of the overwhelming scent of the garlic and the onion, but as soon as it comes and is placed in front of you and you get your nose in there, you can really just inhale this kind of citrusy fruit. And I played a lot when it came to food, not so much on the flavors. I let the characters decide what their own flavors were, like the flavor notes, but I would lay on scent and appearance. And that was pretty much the big thing for any sort of mealtime that my characters went through. Is, all right, Matt gets to figure out what is a semi-pseudo realistic food that I can try and describe using a pretty good sized vocabulary and a pretty good idea of culinary arts in theory. I have never gone to school for cooking or for culinary arts, but I've eaten a lot of foods, a lot of what most people would consider exotic foods too, so I will play on the flavor notes and scents that I personally am used to. And we'll see if what the players get out of that. And apparently they really liked it because they kept on asking me. Which was really something I did it once. They asked me like what they were eating for lunch. And so I just kind of went off, and then every time after that, whenever there was food involved, I had to start coming up with like elaborate descriptions of what they were eating. Which kind of became fun, but eventually I started running out of ideas because it's been a very, very long time since I've had any Middle Eastern cuisine. And I was really young at the time, so like I would do a lot with lamb, and I would do a lot with like fish. Because that is the types of foods that I remember eating a lot. whenever we would have Middle Eastern food. Which, by the way, if you ever get a chance to, it's delicious. It can be kind of spicy. But so good. Think kind of like Indian food, but a little bit spicier. If you want to have just kind of like a generic comparison. Which is funny, because Indian food is actually really spicy. Like real Indian food, but like Americanized Indian food is a lot sweeter. So like if you go to an Indian restaurant in wherever you happen to live, chances are they're going to have some like real Indian food that is going to be spicy as all hell. But most of the stuff that they're going to have is going to be a little bit on the sweeter side. When in reality, if you go to the Middle East and Southeast Asia, it's spices all day, every day, all the spice. The spice must flow. Sandworms and all. When we put these in the book, I might have to do more. Like, I might have to bold something like this, but then the individual characters, like White Agent, I might have to do that whole thing in like italicized or something, so that I can separate out those characters a bit more easily. Or maybe even just give them their own sections by like dropping this down here. Something like that. That'd probably work. Yeah, I think that'll work. Kind of breaks it up. The rumors and lore thing, though, oh man. Separating those out into their own sections is going to be a giant pain. But we'll have to do it to make it as easy and usable as possible. That's the key thing, is whenever you're making any sort of game book, or actually anything, anytime you're making something that you want someone to interact with, the easier you can make it, the better it will be. Especially if you're trying to do something for like D&D. That is truly where ease of usability should come before everything else. That is a function before form. Now you want to have all the nice form, and you want to have all the nice artwork and all the backstory and lore and whatnot for people to sink their teeth into. But if you don't have a usable product before all that, it doesn't matter. Because all you're going to get is... all you're going to have is... That's why actually why we're doing this book first. Why we're doing the World Guide first. That way, we can get all of that out of the way. The World Guide will be complete. That will be the key. That'll be the beginning. The key piece where I can hand this to somebody who wants to run Al Qadim, and they won't have all the different classes and unique items and whatnot that I'm going to put into the player's guide to Al Qadim, but they'll have all the information that they need at their fingertips to run the campaign setting. And to me, that is far more important than the character classes and races thing. because people can put whatever races and classes that they want together, but if they don't have the information about how the world works, then they can't have a setting. Then they don't have a setting of Al Qadim. They have whatever their setting is, which is fine. I've been thinking about developing my own... Before I bought into Al Qadim, before I was ever a dungeon master, I thought about building my own campaign setting. But then Roland, my old housemate, brought out this old steamer trunk full of role-playing books, and we were just kind of flipping through it because he wanted to bring out one of his favorite old campaign settings, Birthright, which is kind of like, what if the Highlander were real, kind of? And we happened to pass by an Al Qadim book, and I was like, whoa, wait, what's that? And he pulled it out, and we started flipping through it, and it was like, holy, like, it, just flipping through it the one time, it spoke to me. And I have not looked back towards making my own campaign setting since. It has been my drug of choice, if you will. And yet, I've only ever been able to run it twice. So here's the messed up thing. So this is something you will hear from anybody who's a dungeon master, who loves one campaign setting in particular, or one game system in particular. They never get to play it. They love it so much, and they want to share it with everybody they know, which means they never get to play it. Because they're the ones running it. They know it well enough to run it. No one else owns it or knows it well enough. So they have to run it. They have to share their love, their passion for it with everybody else. And as much as I want to play in Al Qadim, partially the reason why I'm making this, is just having it. Having that bookshelf behind me, full of Al Qadim stuff. I mean, it's only one shelf, but still. Makes me happy just knowing that at any time I can pull down one of those books and just write something that came from me and is using this wonderful world as its backdrop. And with that, I would like to thank all of you for coming and hanging out with me. I would especially like to thank Kazan and Day Zero for participating in chat. Thank you guys very much. Remember that we are partners with Humble. And if you take this link, whenever you purchase something from the Humble store, or pick up a Humble bundle, or sign up for Humble Monthly, you help support this channel and the charity that I've chosen to sponsor, Doctors Without Borders. So please, if you're looking at picking anything up in the near future, go ahead and use our link. If chat is not available at the time, you can also find it just below the stream. There's a big old heart in a circle. That takes you right there and puts our affiliate code in so that we get credit for that. Also, we have a Discord for those unaware. Come, join. So far, we've got a few people. We've got a total of 9 of us on there. But we always want more. So please, join us on our Discord. I've got a whole bunch of voice channels for games. I've got some discussion boards. So please, join us. And last thing is that we have a Patreon now. And that Patreon is to help grow all of this, to make this better, to get better equipment, to hire a graphic artist or graphic designer, to spend the time that I currently don't have between this and my day job of finishing up emotes and channel art and doing all those things that I really want to do. I just don't quite have the time to do. And it's another means by which someone who doesn't necessarily want to farm for bits, who wants to support the channel but doesn't want to just throw money into the tip jar and let that, and every once in a while have to remember to do that. You can set it up. I've got it set up so that it's a monthly. So if you want to donate $1, $2, whatever, I will gladly accept whatever help you guys are willing to offer to help make this a better experience. Notably, and most related to this, what we're doing here is that if you become a patron at the $20 level, if you are a patron at that level, when we complete a DesignWorks project, I will get you a copy of it. I will print it up, I will make whatever pieces need to be made, and I will get it to you. For that is kind of your reward for helping support us at what is currently our highest tier of patron. Anyway, I want to thank you guys again for coming in, hanging out with me, and I hope you will join me tomorrow, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., where we will play more The Elder Scrolls Morrowind. Have a wonderful night.